how it affects the improvisation that you guys like to leave room for, and just sort of how that works with how you come up with your ideas.
Sure. Well, Drake and I met when we were kids, really. We were like 15 years old, doing improv theater and kind of sketch comedy type stuff. And I think from the world of improv, and from seeing like the movies of Christopher Guest, we thought that was a good way to make a movie, and kind of applied it to a different genre. We don't entirely write traditional scripts when we work together. We write more like outlines, and then certain parts of it are written more traditionally action dialogue. But for the most part, it's written a little more abstractly, and I guess it just it feeds into how Drake directs, which is very impulsively, and I think that it benefits the final product in the case of working together.
And how does that impact, Jonathan, with you? As an editor, it seems like with this style, there is a lot of reshaping in editing. How do you approach that with respect to the material that Drake wrote?
Well, usually for the scenes, there was basically just a paragraph written about what the scene is and what the kind of directive is. There's no dialogue written, so for every take, the dialogue changes as the scene progresses. So like take 5 or take 6, the dialogue has changed as they kind of find the scene and find what's happening. So editing-wise, it kind of presents a challenge and also an opportunity to find all sorts of gems, and Drake really kind of digs into the scene with the actors. But it definitely presents a challenge in terms of trying to it's more documentary style editing actually, in a way, because everything is different, so you're finding all different things within the scene.
And Katie, if you could actually add to that, with that style of kind of almost, it seems like you never know where anything might end up, how do you sort of set a scene or set the kind of the art, the art of any given location?
Well, the fundamental way that we work is we all get along really well. We're all like a very cohesive team. And it's kind of like the story exists already, and we're like chipping away at it as we go. And we're kind of unveiling this beautiful thing with like Drake being our leader and having this beautiful story that's written by Ben. And so it's kind of like we take inspiration from everything. When we shot this film, we shot it working out of a space in Dumbo in New York, and we shot it at a house that was in Seacliff, Long Island, in New York. And so it's kind of like we were pulling all this inspiration from all these different places, also going into the past of the actors and having them chip in with like their ideas, and so it's very organic, collaboration. So it's kind of like the story is there, we just made it happen.
If I can add to that, what maybe is apparent, what maybe people don't realize, I don't know, is that not only the actors improvising, but Katie's improvising as well, and so is cinematographer John Gilsheridan, because a lot of times the actors, Drake gives them the freedom, the actors don't necessarily have a mark to hit, so maybe the focus over has to be a little more on his toes than he normally would. Like everybody is improvising and growing as the film grows in the filming of it.
Is that a style that you each had to adapt to, or is it something that you were each very welcoming to? Or I guess how being suddenly beset with this style, how did you each initially react to it?
Well, with like Crazy, we had this really interesting idea. I proposed this idea where I would interview the actors because Felicity and Anton were the right age for their characters. So I interviewed each of them to have these like specific questions that they answer, like what's on your bedside table, what's in your closet, so that they could walk into a set and feel like it's theirs. And so we kind of set the stage for this being a specific way to design a film, to have the actors feel like they're really, 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 there and real people. And so for this, we did the same exact thing. And so with Breathe In, it kind of just became this method, this idea where I was emailing Amy, emailing Guy, and asking very personal questions about themselves, and then taking this information along with the scripted information about their characters and then building this world that exists. So a super fun challenge, like no other filmmaking style.
Is that the same for you, John?
I think so, 'cause when we basically get into the editing, it's kind of a free-for-all in terms of story, because part of the story, much of the story works, but there's also stuff that comes up that we never thought would come up. So suddenly the story starts to take different turns, and while we're shaping it, we have to really kind of move with that. And I think in this film, they shot in August 2011, was it? And yeah, and then I started working actually a couple months after that. So I started putting it together in order, and as I was putting it together, which typically on a film, you're putting it together in different order as they shoot. So putting it together in order, you could kind of shape the story as it went. And with Drake, he's very much like, let's not worry about continuity. Let's just kind of, put it together and kind of see what we get. And oftentimes with the improv style, you just get all sorts of crazy stuff. And some of it works and some of it doesn't, but you're constantly looking at the arc of the film and trying to feel it and trying to figure out exactly what you can use within the stuff that you get with the actors doing all sorts of different things, because the blocking changes all the time. Like just they have the freedom to do so many different things that when you're not tied to a script, there seems to be so many more options.
And speaking for John Gulissarian, who's not here, like he was so important to this process, like, being able to be the camera that's hidden in the corner and being able to supervise like focus pulling and all that stuff on the spot is like mind blowing.
We should take some questions from the audience. Are there any questions? Oh, over there, yeah, in the back.
How did that process affect production?
The question was, how did that process affect production?
Well, the process of making the film, or
In terms of the planning of the film and also the budget?
Well, like scheduling.
yeah, so because the process that we've already worked with before, this budget was definitely much more than like crazy, but we had like a system down.
I think that like everyone, like I say, we had done this other film like crazy previously, and everyone on the team had developed a bit of a shorthand and kind of knew what to expect. And so, in terms of scheduling and budgeting, I think that there was just a lot. There was a great amount of contingency, and it was like, well, we know we may have to go back and shoot some new things, so let's plan for that. We know that's going to cost money, so let's plan for that. So I think we already kind of had it down by the time we were doing this.
Other questions? Yes.
If there was going to be a sequel to this, what would be happening in that sequel?
Well, Between Shades of Grey comes out in, or 50 Shades of Grey, right? I don't know, I think one of the things that we did want to do is make the film a little bit cyclical, actually, so that it was very encapsulated and there would be no sequel. I mean, if he took the beginning scene of the film and the end scene of the film and switched them, they'd be exactly the same. And that was very much part of the intention, is to make it a very contained moment.
We have time for a few more. Yeah.
Your movie is beautiful, really quite extraordinary. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about where the storyline came from. Like, where did that come from? What was the script?
The question was, where did the story come from?
Drake had the seed of an idea that was basically just to tell kind of an unrequited love story, and then I jumped on board, and we decided what we wanted to do was tell a story that we hadn't really lived personally, but something we maybe kind of observed in other people, or at least desires we'd observed in other people, and that are more like Keith's age in film, and we mainly wanted to write a story that was not driven by carnal desires, a love story, that was about a friendship that turned into something a little bit more. And that was a big motivating factor, because we didn't feel like either of us had seen it. Like, there are movies that exist where older men and younger women get together, and it's usually driven by lust, but we wanted to somehow develop a friendship between two people like that, and then test the limits of it. And that was where the story came from initially.
Yes, right up front.
You worked with Felicity in Like Crazy as well. When you're writing a script in the style that you write it, and with the team that you work with, how does the audition process work when you're going to other actors who maybe you're not familiar with?
The question is about how the audition process works, especially with regards to actors you know.
Well, it's sometimes, I think different actors embrace it differently, and honestly, Drake could answer this question better for you, but I'll try to do my best. I think that some actors are quite liberated by the idea that they get to come up with a lot of what they do, and some are quite put off by it. And obviously, you want to work with the more adventuresome people who are into it and believe that they can do it.
One thing to add is that Keith Reynolds, Guy Pearce, has an accent in this film, which is like another thing to go through. Felicity can just be herself and be, she has an accent too, but in the movie she plays a British character, so to be improvisational, to have an accent is pretty.
I think it also, it speaks to Drake's ability to work with actors actually, that he could, in some ways, convince Guy that he could do it and do it with this American accent because he's Australian, of course.
We have to start wrapping it up, but before we go, is there, just since we've been speaking so much about this style, is this a way you would like to continue to work, or you would each like to continue to work, or are you more comfortable in more traditional kind of roles with regards to the writing design?
I think that I certainly would, not at this moment. I think it's time to explore new avenues and try things a little bit, try things in a little more traditional manner. But I certainly want to get the band back together.
Well, as a designer, you want to be able to do anything, but I think that this organic sort of feel is a big part of my heart, and I love it. And I'd like to keep doing it, but I also love doing other things.
I feel the same way. I mean, it's pretty. I think we've all had a pretty amazing time working with Drake on Like Crazy and working on this film. And I think what it does is it gives a lot of freedom and it gives a lot of latitude to experiment in ways that you don't get to experiment with a scripted film. And I've done lots of that. We've done both of those things. But something that does is it releases you to kind of do things that you kind of weren't, that you can't do on a film that's scripted, and it gives you opportunities and challenges that you just that kind of aren't available. And Drake really provides a good space for exploiting that.
And when does this film come out?
I think it's March.
So March, check out Breathe In. Let's please thank. Quickly, and don't forget to vote. Thank you.